hello and welcome. We all want to experience what technology will look like in the future, but thinking about it and actually experiencing it is not going to be easy. You need the help of specialists like Marco Tempest, a creative technologist who combines magic and science beautifully to illustrate some of the ways in which technology could enter our lives, and more importantly, you as a business, as an enterprise, could use some of these inputs to actually create those technologies and look ahead. Marco, thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for talking to me.
So tell us, I know that you use magic and you use augmented reality and all of that to give some amazing, and we've got visuals playing while we talk later, but and to make some amazing cases to audiences. So tell us about what you're working on right now.
So a lot of what I do for organizations like Accenture or the Jet Propulsion Laboratory is bringing technological stories to life, kind of creating very compelling, realistic simulations of technologies which might still need to be implemented or which are in the very near future. And some of them are also technologies which are already existing. So in a way, it's kind of starting a conversation about these future technologies and kind of embellish them in a way that is rememberable, like memorable.
Right. And you know, for instance, you did a demonstration recently using a swarm of drones. So what were you trying to show there?
So with tiny drones flying around me, that's a technically very difficult thing to do. We're not yet at a place where we can have drones which follow our every thought or command. But we can simulate this kind of experience using the tools of narrative, of story. And by doing that, it gives us a very good idea of what we like to achieve or how these technologies might interface with users. So with drones, for example, how would it be if we had tiny little drones which are embodiment of AI, which follow us around like pets? Would that be a delightful thing? Would that be a useful thing? Could a drone follow a worker on a factory floor and instruct him what to do or not to do, point out dangers, help with some of the logistics of his work? So these are kind of conversation starters which are angled at a much broader audience than just industry, where a 12-year-old girl could see my performance on stage and say, hey, I have an idea, you could do this or that. So broad conversation starters for a general public.
Right. So apart from drones, what else are you looking at today which in some near future date I would actually start experiencing and maybe using in my life?
So I think extended reality, as we call it at Accenture, so augmented and virtual reality, IoT, machine learning, robotics. As these things converge, very interesting new use cases come to mind. We are kind of at the brink or at the edge of where devices will have local intelligence. We call that intelligence on the edge. Devices which we can wear, which not only reason about the environment around us, but also reason internally on our behavior. Did I look at this yet? Did that need to be pointed out to me? Am I tired? Am I maybe fading away or my attention span is not there? And that, of course, are very magical technologies. They can also be frightening, but for industry, they can be super useful if we can find ways to scale them up quickly.
Right. So some of the examples that you've quoted are essentially devices or interventions which help us. As you said, you know, giving the direction, helping tell us whether there's something wrong with us. Maybe this goes into healthcare as well. What are the other kind? Could they be substituting what we are doing in some ways?
So what kind of technologies might be displaced by it, or behaviors which are...
Or could they be displacing humans?
Well, I don't think that the machines will suddenly wake up and kind of take over. I think there's a little bit of a perception gap where the general public might think that there are these machines which are truly intelligent and can do anything, where at the other side we just make kind of incremental increases in like kind of statistical models and machine learning, where some of the things are super useful, but they certainly not replace the way we think or the way we have empathy or... So I think there's quite a bit of a gap right now where what we see in Hollywood movies, what people think is already existing and what truly exists, where we have devices or services like Cortana or Siri or Alexa, where, which can barely keep a conversation up with us, right? So we're not quite there yet, which doesn't mean that there are many super useful applications in industry and in kind of like thinking of the medical field where algorithms help doctors diagnose, where insurance companies use machine learning to go through patient files and do insurance claim analysis and so on. So there are incredible applications coming online, and I think it's good to have conversations about them and see how to put the human in the loop, like what role do we play in the near future?
Right. So, and I'm seeing that in some ways you also argue that we all need to be creative technologists in some way if we have to prepare ourselves for the future. That.
Well, so I think we don't have to all be creative technologists, but
as leaders, as business leaders,
as business leaders, I think so. I mean, you have to kind of commit to the things we all need to commit to, like lifelong learning and problem solving and tech watch and being aware of these technologies as they come online. You probably want to seek advice as well, so you know when it's time to pivot and to implement these kind of solutions. And more importantly, I think there's kind of a way to implement these technologies which has much to do with creativity. A lot of the interactions we're going to have with these kind of new systems are as much liberal arts problems as they are engineering problems. So the user experience will be very, very important. It will define if these are scary or delightful things, or completely useless or super useful things. So user experience design, which is kind of an artistic problem, is a very, very big part of interacting with IoT, robots, machine learning.
And I can see that you're constantly cautioning us, and you're telling us that there are things happening, but don't run off on a high horse as yet. Hold on. Why is that? Is that because you're seeing a lot of people put more energy than perhaps required into the future?
I mean, so we've seen kind of in the augmented reality and virtual reality space that things are very hard to scale up. There's a lot of expertise is in play to create these kind of experiences. Game companies have mastered that, but they don't need to deliver within weeks or months to large industry. So when it comes to these kind of technologies, I think what industry needs to do, or leaders need to do, is they need to very pragmatically look at what's currently possible at scale. And so with augmented reality, there are things possible at scale which are amazing, which will give so many benefits, like connected worker, training scenarios where we have up to 74% higher knowledge retention by training with these kind of devices. We can have semi-retired personnel help field workers in the field through a connected worker scenario with quite inexpensive devices, with quite simple, easy to implement solutions. So there's tremendous opportunities, but when it comes to things like immersive data visualization, how can we make sense of data in a much more intuitive way? This is a liberal arts problem which still is not quite solved. Like, what kind of data and in what modality should we look at which makes more sense than a scatter plot on a screen, right? Kind of. So in other words, technology, technology is very good at creating cool things. It's not so good at creating useful things. So we need to be very pragmatic and see what are the useful elements and when is the right time to implement them.
Right. And last question. So what are the kind of things that you're currently working on your drawing board and presenting, apart from the drones that you talked about?
Yes, I already touched on it a little bit, kind of like, so I'm super interested in immersive data visualization. How can you actually look at data in new ways and then tell stories with them or give them a narrative? So how can we get with data from data being data to being media? So we can all consume it and understand it, or we can have analysts kind of shy away from the current PowerPoint model and actually look at live data together with our customers and kind of explore what's going on in a way that is currently not possible.
Right, and a last question, which, because you talked about it in the past, you said how the Rubik's Cube was actually a structural design problem and which became a mass product in some ways. So is that the line of thought that you're thinking? I mean, how do you also take
so the Rubik's Cube with structural design problem becomes the world's most successful puzzle of all times. And so I think A lot of the successes we will have will be in the same sense a little bit counterintuitive. We will have bits and pieces of solutions which we might have to pivot into other fields. We have a really large buffet of technologies right now, fantastic technologies, and some of them we know what we want to do with them, and some of them will surprise us with use cases which we might not have foreseen. And so starting conversations about these early on, getting these into innovation labs at companies and into the innovations labs we run at Accenture is of course a big part of kind of writing this story of these technologies.
Right. Marco, Tempest, thank you very much for speaking with us, and look forward to working on some of the interesting things that you're dreaming of right now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.